When you start choosing good thoughts, you start making good choices. A very warm good morning to and all. I am Adira. Universal Engineering College, Valivattam invites you to the international webinar series on future technologies, opportunities, and challenges after COVID 19. Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. Today, we are going to present the topic major sectors that have great potential in near future. The presenter of the topic will be Dr. Mohan B. Menon, the honorary chairperson of Disha Global Trust Kochi, and actively involved in facilitating open, flexible, and digital learning for societal and human advancement leading to sustainable development. He held several important positions globally during his over 40 years of academic and administrative career, including that of Chief and Director of the UNESCO and United Nations Relief and Works Agency Education Program for Palestine Refugees, Aman Jordan. Deputy Vice Chancellor of Bawazan Open University, Penang, Malaysia. Education Specialist and Team Leader at the Commonwealth of Learning, Canada. Chairman, National Institute of Open Schooling. Planning Officer and Professor Director Education at Indira Gandhi National Open University, and Research Fellow and Lecturer at the Center of Advanced Study in Education, EMS University of Baroda, India. Professor Manon's teaching, research and development expertise, and published work have been mainly in the areas of teacher education, science education, instructional design, open distance learning, open educational resources, and digital learning. He has over 60 publications, including research and conceptual articles, books, monographs, training and assessment tools, and instructional materials. Professor Menon participated and delivered keynotes and plenary presentations in a number of international conferences and seminars. He is internationally accepted researcher and trainer in areas such as instructional design, open educational resources, and digital learning. Professor Menon has consulted extensively for international agencies such as UNESCO, UNDP, World Bank, Danida, UNICEF, COL, IDRC, and DFID, in addition to providing expert professional advice to national institution and the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. He is presently in the board of International Council for Education on Teaching. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel, or you have the option of raise hand in control panel for asking your doubts. And please remind that we will also have time for questions at the end. Now, we will turn the time over to respected principal, Dr. Joske Jacob. Please, sir.
Very warm good morning to all. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, today our speaker is an eminent personality. From the introduction itself, you might be heard that his positions. So I'm sure that this presentation will give a clear picture about the upcoming areas in the that will give more opportunities in the near future. And I wish all success. And handing over the mic to Dr. Mohan B. Menon. Sir, please proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Jose. And also, first of all, I should thank the institution UEC for inviting me to this webinar. It's an opportunity for me to interact with all the present participants in the area of education, vocational and technical training. So with that, let me go into the presentation. The title, of course, says that it is major sectors that have great potential in near future after the COVID-19 and when we are all out from our lockdown positions. But my focus will mainly be in the sectors of education and training, mainly because that has been my area and expertise. And while I will be surely talking about the way different sectors, how it has the COVID-19 has impacted but the focus will be on education and training. If we have been talking about lockdown and social distancing, although I personally doesn't believe that the term social distancing was the right word for what we are going through. Yes, it has been physical distancing. I would prefer to call it physical distancing. If it was social distancing, probably this webinar and the interaction with all of you wouldn't have happened. And I have seen in the last two to 3 months of lockdown that probably I have interacted through various means, WhatsApp and telephone and Skype and other social media with my friends and relatives and professional colleagues more than probably I would have done without that. I mean, physically, although I was free to be going out anywhere, but that's not easily possible. So there has not been much of social distancing. Yes, I agree that there has been certain things are curtailed. We cannot have a get together with people. We cannot go for having a dinner in the restaurant and such things. Those problems are there. But virtual socialization has been happening quite in a big way. And people have actually they have come out of their usual way of using the social media to very productively, creatively using it in jointly even coming out with video programs and music songs together, sitting in different parts. So the whole platform of virtual platform has been used much more creatively by us because we were put into that uncomfortable position of not able to come out of our homes. So there has been virtual socialization in a big way, and it has been also impacting all professional activities. Many professional leaders have come out and said that probably our sector now will not go on in the same way as it happened earlier. The IT sector, for example, Krish Gopalakrishnan had a talk, and he was mentioning that now mostly people will be working from home rather than they're coming into offices, and it will be cheaper for the institution, for the company, as well as it's more comfortable probably for the employees. But we don't know. I mean, this is what the expectation is to whether all will be happy working from home. I don't know, but still that possibility is very much there, and many have been very productively working from home. In not only in the IT sector, but also in other wherever IT is applied, whether virtual interaction is there, where connectivity is there, and this becomes more cost effective also. So we probably will come out with more and more innovative solutions in all sectors to make the whole process more cost effective. Because remember that we are having a recession, and the financial position of all countries would be affected, and countries will not be the same as it used to be before COVID. And very I mean, in a modest way, things will have to be organized, and then we'll have to be more productive also. But this will not be just doing without some changes that's happening in the structure and systems in all sectors. Now, recently in May 2020, this year, the World Economic Forum, after the COVID, of course, that came out with a report, and it's available online. And if you Google World Economic Forum report May 2020, you will get it, and it's worth looking into that. And I just glanced through that, and then I found that there are things written and they are visualized how we are going, what will be the immediate impact of the pandemic and what would be its consequences. That is one thing that has been looked at. And also looking at for decisions that will shape the state of the world for years to come. Now, it is a large document. We may not have to go through all the aspects, but at least pertaining to the sector that we are interested in, it is good to have a look at. And especially it is talking about the application of technology. This webinar itself is on technology application, and this forum has a full chapter on digital technology and how how that would be applied for functioning of the different sectors in the coming years, short term as well as long term. See, one of the things that WEF has highlighted is that today the situation is little messy. I mean, and we also know that the countries have been talking to each other, not in a very friendly manner. One country, would criticize the other country for what has been going on, and China especially has been in the receiving end. And US, of course, is very vocal about it. India also mentions that off and on our problems, and the trade has been affected, manufacturing has been affected. There is closing of borders, not only from country to country, as we know, from state to state. Borders have been closed, and we know how our people, the difficulty that they went through in some of the border districts of Kerala itself, like from Kasaragod, people not allowed to go to Mangalore and such things. So this within the country problems have been there. Across countries there have been problems, and even international rules and protocols which have been accepted for long trade agreements are also in the risk of being changed. And lockdown, we still don't know how long this lockdown will go on, not only here in our country but elsewhere too. There are two opinions about it. People say that what should be the right way, nobody really knows. And there is a lot of anger and anxiety, of course, to whom? Basically, that is shown against the governing governments and countries, because it is nobody's fault that this is happening, but nobody clearly knows how to manage the situation. That is the scenario today. Now, that will have to change into a scenario of better, improved politics. I think countries may have to talk to each other better, and there has to be a change mindset of the all stakeholders. I think that is slowly happening. I have found that in the education sector, all faculty in the higher education institutions, the teachers, they have been very, very traditional in their approach to teach. And although there have been solutions to use technology for the last almost 20-25 years, people have development in the use of communication and education, telecommunication and also computer technology were not fully applied by the teachers, because they were happy going into the class and then giving their lecture or whatever they do on a regular basis. That was their comfort zone. But now they themselves come forward and say that, no, this won't help. I think we will have to do something different. So there is a change of mindset. There is no doubt about that. We all are in a different position today as compared to 4 months back, as far as use of technology is concerned in every sector, including education and training. And cooperation among people for reconstruction is another thing that people will have to think of, countries will have to think of across board. And innovative solutions, that is another, as I was mentioning earlier also, will have to be found. We don't have all solutions for everything. We know very well that when in Kerala itself, when the government wants to implement certain things, they come out with an app, then they take away the app, they don't know how it works. And all this, although they are innovative solutions, we really don't know how well that will work and how the public will take it. But all sectors are looking at technology mediated solutions for restructuring and transformation. That is the situation today. And if you look at the last 20 years, interestingly, and WEF, the World Economic Forum report also says that first 10 years of the millennium, that is up to 2010, there was a major conviction that technology can make a big difference. And a lot of things happened during that time. Even regarding laptops, you will remember that there is low-cost laptops came up in Africa and they were distributed to different countries. But we will remember in India, the government came out and said we will give an Akash. That was one of the laptops, if I remember the name correct, for 100 rupees. Tablets for 100 rupees. And they produced it. IITs came out and helped, and a lot of technical solutions were made. But somehow, in the second decade of the millennium, the after 2010, there has been more and more apprehensions about skepticism about the role of emerging technologies. Where people were said, "What will social media do to us? Our private information being shared, the whole country, whole world will come to know about our." All these have been going on. We have been reading in the newspapers. There is a lot of apprehension, and also many people believe this will kill all the small business, and it will only give benefit to big corporate sectors. They will take away or rather swallow the small business. And all these apprehensions are there. I mean, technology is given the freedom, the individual freedom within the classroom, the teacher's freedom, and all other employees' participation. All this will be affected. So second half was not really very good, unfortunately, and partly because of the social media, how it was the wiki. I mean, I'm sorry, the Twitter things coming up and their problems, and the wiki scandal and such things that we all are familiar with. Now, let me come to, with that introductory remarks, let me come to the sectors which are now. I have listed a few sectors which I have found, and I have also read some of the articles, because I should say that I am not an expert in all these sectors, and to talk in a authoritative manner about each of these sectors. No, I'm not. But as a layperson, as a person who has been seeing what is happening across, I am reading about what others talk about it. These are some of the sectors which are affected by the COVID-19 and the lockdown. Real estate. All of us know that they say, yeah, we can go back to our operations and then we can start manufacturing things, but we don't get the raw material. We don't get the supply of raw material as we used to get. One of the medical firms right in Kerala, I mean, is a friend of mine, and in Palgad, he was mentioning that we want the tablets, the medicine is required, but then the chemicals, the base chemicals come from China, and that has not been. And that's one of the things in medicine that China has been the one exporting, and many countries have been importing that, and Indian medicine actually has a major because the real face-to-face banking is affected. But then what is coming up? There is always a silver line in all these. That is e-banking. E-banking is becoming more and more. Now, people really don't go to the bank, and even if, of course, during lockdown time we were not able to. But even when we managed to go there, very less people you find in the banks, mainly because of the online possibilities. Banking, various aspects of banking have been going on online. Another sector which is very badly affected is aviation and public transportation. as all of us know, that how many of the aviation companies have gone, may become bankrupt. For example, and all back to India. But and the regular flights are just now starting. So that's the situation regarding aviation. Automobile was affected. I mean, as one would see in the papers. But what many feel that automobile industry, not only the four wheelers but also two wheelers, may become more, may boom. Um, if not boom, at least there is a positive trend. Mainly because that many people may not like to use public transportation. If cheaper ways are there, and one can, if I can have a cycle or even a motorbike or a car, those chartered private vehicles were brought, used for that purpose. One other sector which is affected is retail. Because all the shops are closed, and even restaurants are not there, and retail was very, very badly affected. Even now, although retail shops are open now in many cities, including towns in Kerala, we preferred going to uh, uh, the restaurant and buy it from there, or go and eat there rather than asking online. But that's going to change in a big way, not only in the case of food, but in many other items. The most of the 5 star and 3, 4, 5 star hotels, they have rooms, and there are no, they maybe many of them are being used for quarantine these days, but they are affected in a big way, and many of them may even get closed by the time the COVID is over, unless tourism picks up. But tourism picking up will be very, very slow. I in health hospitals and all have not been there enough there. They were there, but not enough. So there are many cases where the patients were told, no, we cannot treat you, there is no space. Now Kerala did better because Kerala had a good infrastructure support right from our history says that. We have done very well in having primary health centers and all right from post independence time. So, but the medicines as not too bright now. I think the possibility of that responsibility coming to India is more. The cheap medicines to be, and we have enough capacity. Our medical companies, the medicine pharmaceutical companies, have enough capacity to do that. So that is health sector. And education and training, I have kept it last because I will be talking about that more. Is the can get them trained. You can see that today, what Kerala government could think of was the Victor channel, providing the classes, and some of the classes are good. I have been watching the many of the classes for different classes, and some of them are average, and some of them are really bad. And if that, whether that will teach our children, even during COVID time, forget about after that, even during this COVID time, is not a very effective way of doing it. That's not because that we don't have the technology available, nor there are technicians or technical staff. Maybe they are not enough, but they are still available. Apps are available. Their software is available. Hardware maybe not enough. Probably that has to be provided. Now that has to be seen. So similarly with training also, why I kept training separately is training as the major issue. As the engineering colleges will know, that you have a lot of hands-on experiences to be provided, and for all the technical and professional engineering colleges. So that is one issue. And second is that training also includes the industrial training that will happen on the job. So how that will happen? Will we be now again calling people to the one place and get them trained in the workshop, or will there be a different way of doing it? Will have to be seen. I mean, how that will develop. Not that we have full solutions for these things, but then we can examine some of these possibilities. Now, so in education and training sectors, I have actually, if we call them as the subsectors, the school education, higher education, vocational and technical education, ongoing professional training of people, and which in a way that includes industrial training also. But industrial training I have kept separately, because that is a major thing that the corporate sectors or the companies themselves will take up. And they will like to decide how they are going to train their own staff. Induction training when they get into the job, and continuing training, how they are planning to do, can be very different. I don't think big companies even can afford now to, many companies used to call their senior management group into 5-star hotels and have training organized in 5-star hotels. I don't think that in the post COVID time, many will be able to do that. When they are not able to even pay salary fully, and they are cutting the salary, how are they going to use that money for? Earlier, they were these training programs were done because of tax benefit, could be one reason, and second is that it is a welfare activity for the teachers. I mean, for the employees also. they 3-4 days they can have a comfortable time and then get the training also. So everybody sort of welcomed that. So whether that will continue in the same manner, I don't think. Looking for digital technology based solutions is what every sector will think of, and including education and training sectors. Let us see what are the possibilities in the digital learning possibilities. I have brought in learning because in education, whether it is training or educate other formal educational sectors, it's learning that is very important. So digital learning is an area which is really coming up in a big way. Now, one good thing that has happened, there is increased openness to think out of the box among all stakeholders, administrators, educators, all think, yes, we should use digital learning. I think that's a positive, very positive thing. The mindset probably what we cannot do, we couldn't do for so many years. It is COVID-19 which could do that in 3 months' time to change our mindset. I think that was a shocking change, but nevertheless, there is a change. And technology also providing for cost-effective solutions. Now, for example, if this webinar, when we are organizing, and the institution, if they have to call people to the institution and organize the talks, you can easily see that the cost involved would be much more. And you are able to get people from all over the world. One of your webinar speakers is from, I think, Cyprus. So imagine if he has to be here to provide the this talk. So there will be technology surely will provide cost-effective solutions. We should look for it, and we should use it more because we have much less money to spend in the coming years. And but one thing which is very important is that along with that, the educational policies and processes also will have to change. Government and UGC and all know coming out with now telling, yes, we can organize in technical area. They even said apprenticeship and then technical hands-on training you can do online. They said that. I don't know, whether they have come out with the details how they are planning to do. Yes, there are ways of doing it, but one thing it shows that the government and the policy makers are very positive with regard to technology use. Mainly because that they know what the cut they will have to make in the different sectors. So they know that they can't afford to have more of face-to-face education. And then comes to students showing more acceptance. That's very interesting because today's students, all of them, I would say, those who are in the engineering colleges and the schools, and surely in they are all, they were born into a digital world. The digitization happened during the 90s. So they are actually known as digital natives. Old people like me, for example, I am digital immigrants. I was born into a radio technology scenario. Only radio was there. And that was the only way that people used to communicate. Of course, postal system was there, but technology wise, it was radio. Now we have, everybody can easily access, and they are very comfortable with the smartphones or tablets or what is provided. I think we all know about that. We have been stopping them from using it because they have been using it not for very desirable purposes. And that's what institutions did. I went to one of the institutions and I was talking about use of technology. Then one of the teachers stood up and said, but they are not allowed to bring the smartphones into the class. So that was the situation earlier. We were apprehensive about the use of smartphones. Now now everybody telling that you bring the smartphone. If you don't have, use your father's smartphone or tablet. So we have changed to that situation. Suitability for industrialized, individualized and inclusive learning. I mean, in the classroom, whatever you say, there are 40-50 students sitting in the class and a teacher coming and giving teaching. all of them are considered together as here 40 as a group is being taught in the classroom. Now 40 as individuals are being taught in a technology mediated situation. How that individualization can be more effective and inclusive also, because there are different types of people in the class. Some are very bright students, some are not so bright, some are a little below average. You can even provide materials and support in an individualized manner if technology is available. So that's another thing. No, I'm not telling that all these are now being done with technology. We are underutilizing technology, even in places where technology is used in the classrooms or online. When it is used, it is being underused. We'll come to that later. And the availability of open educational resources. This is an area which one has to look at more. But open educational resources are all digital resources available in the internet with an open license. They are not copyright restricted. And this is a movement which was started with MIT, one of the institutes of technology, in 1999. And they came out with all their resources and materials. They put it into the internet web, and they called it as open educational resources. Of course, they didn't call it resources. They called it open educational courses. But then later UNESCO took it up, and then OER now is a major movement. In the last 20 years, it has really picked up. But still, we are not using it much. Now, yes, this is an opportunity that we should be using it now. Now, the actual question, the issue that we have to look at, and what the students of especially the engineering colleges, but other educational institutions also, is that if that sort of a development, as we were telling earlier, if that is what is happening, what will be the potential areas where we will need strengthening, we will need capacity building, we will need efforts made in the post-COVID situation, so that we can make the education and training sector much more effective using technology. One is e-content development and reuse. E-content is the material, the courses, the messages that we make, which is sent through the online or broadcast or whatever. Now, if one looks at the Victor, the classes that is going on, organized by the government of Kerala, you will find many of them some are very good teachers. I mean, I have no problem on that. But they can be better teachers if there is good e-content developed. Now they are mostly talking heads. They are talking heads. I mean, which is a term which is not a derogatory term, which is usually they are used in videos and all. Talking heads are that you can have a video, but the whole video, there will be a talk that is going on. Somebody's head will be there. Somebody's face will be there. Now, most of these videos are like that. Even when we go for online presentations also, which are in the YouTube and all, many of them are like that. Some of them are in the form of discussions, yes. So one area which will need a lot of strengthening and training and work is that e-content development, good content development, good material development. And good material development, even we'll see that even like the animations, for example, graphic, computer graphic, digital animations. How much of digital animations are now used in the classrooms today? Developing simulations, for example. And especially in technical education, it becomes very important that you need not do everything demonstrated in the class or in the laboratory. You can have a simulation developed in the and I will come to that a little later. But then that also is an area where there will be people needed to train others. Job opportunity. I'm trying to say that not only as an employment for working for a firm developing graphic animations, but also starting one's own as a freelancing. entrepreneurship, I say startup, all these will be possible. Low-cost smartphones and tablets. We have seen that when the Kerala government of Kerala came out and said that we are going to start classes, the schools will open, but online or by video. Many students said that we don't have the gadgets for that. Now that we are going back to the situation in about 15, 16 years back, when low-cost tablets were being made. Now we may have to go back to that, and it is possible to produce smartphones and tablets, especially tablets. I am more for tablets than smartphones because children find, especially in the school, children find it easier with a tablet. It's more like an old slate, you know. I mean, so they are comfortable with that. It is large enough. The screen is large enough. They can see things better, and tablets which will do everything that a smartphone also will do, except telephoning probably. Even that is possible to be so, or you have to increase the screen size of a smartphone. So developing such hardware will be one area. So hardware manufacturing is another which will come up. Software and app development, yes. I mean, there will be apps now. So many types of apps are being developed. I think there will be a need to do that in various types of applications. The next is broadband connectivity, because every time people would say that, okay, you can have online, but that is okay with cities. But in the villages, connectivity is very poor. It's not always true. Many a time the broadband companies themselves try to propagate this myth that our connectivity is very poor. The reason is they themselves want to make money out of increasing connectivity. I mean, or rather selling broadband connectivity to, providing broadband connectivity to the users. But it is still, one has to agree that it is always not very robust, very good, reaching all the places. So I think that's an area which, especially what is known as the last mile connectivity. For example, our cities have been putting fiber optics wire. Although fiber optics there in the main network is there, the backbone, the fiber optics backbone is there, but then the last mile is still with a copper wire, and that has to be changed into fiber optics. They did that in my house last year. Our provider came and connected it and said, I mean, I cannot say that whether that has improved the connectivity fully, but anyway, that's an area which has to be. At the moment, for example, I am using not the Wi-Fi, I am using the hotspot from my mobile phone, and that provider, I have been happy with that provider, and it has been working. But Wi-Fi will be a better option also, and also data, of course, through the mobile phones. So capacity building of development of teachers. Yes, teachers, trainers have to be reoriented. Their capacity even to use a technology, even to use a smartphone, not for phoning purposes, but for educational purposes. And also some of the applications. I think there is a need of a large number of people involved in capacity development, not only in the use of hardware, but also the software applications, how an LMS, LMS can be used. All these various areas that there will be a need. I think there will be need of people. There will be need of trained technical people who can do that. And digital working environment. You see, every institution now will have to improve their infrastructure and make the institution entirely digital environment. That means there should be connectivity, broadband connectivity anywhere in the institution. If they can connect to that. This is one. This is taken care of if broadband connectivity is there. But if this is to be made available and also some customization is required for their technology infrastructure, like we have this open source software used for different purposes. Like, for example, the Moodle. Moodle is an open source software. It is free, one would say, but there is a need to customize it. So customizing it, either it has to be outsourced by the institution, or a technician may be required within the institution to administer an LMS, an admin person. Or if you look at all these, and the number of institutions, all institutions may require that if they very seriously wanting to go for using online teaching. And higher end research applications also, there will be people needed, the engineers and researchers, scientists, and policy making is another area. So this is another. Let me go a little faster. I have already taken almost 40 minutes, more than 40 minutes. So let me finish in another 5 minutes. E-content development and reuse. We were telling that talking heads to more innovative content, reuse of available digital resources. You see that there is a need to have people to help in doing it. Startups and home-based content creation. That I think there can be startups for content development, graphical, especially digital graphic animations, creation of simulations, and especially in the technical and vocational area, virtual interfaces such as haptic devices. See, this is an interface with the virtual reality to do hands-on things. A carpenter trainee can work on with the carpentry and have an interface with the virtual. If you ask me the details, I'm not an expert in that, but this is coming up, and many institutions are already into haptic devices. And this, I think, will happen more in the coming years. Now, low-cost smartphones and tablets, I've already talked about it, and indigenous production devices, device repair, institutions requiring servicing of equipment, as I mentioned that, capacity building of teachers, it is the same thing that I mentioned earlier, awareness about using digital technology, competencies in suitable pedagogies, because classroom pedagogies may not be the right type of pedagogies that one might use when you're using technology. So there is a training in pedagogy also required. Creating content suitable for online teaching, not just talking heads, but much more effective. There is what is known as, teachers may adopt more and more what is known as flipped classroom. That means a lot of things the students will have to do outside the classroom, using the online resources, learning things, and then coming to the class only for interaction. Of course, if they are not able to come to class, the interaction also can be done through a LMS. An LMS platform provides for both synchronous and non-synchronous interaction. Chatting is a non-synchronous interaction, but what we are doing now here, like webinar and all this, is a synchronous interaction. There are many apps available for that purpose also, and there will be people needed. Apps available is one thing, but there will be people needed to actually train people for that, the teachers on that. They have to work on that. And designing suitable teaching training environments for different contexts in the teaching learning context. But because for every context, every type of training learning, it is not the same design. One has to customize according to the need of and teachers have to do that and decide what is my group wants and how I will do that. I'm not for really centralizing it. Partly it can be centralized at the institutional level, but a lot of freedom should be given to the teachers to organize their teaching the way they want to do. Surely not at the state, from the state headquarters, things will be decided and everything will happen. Yes, now COVID time, it is happening with Victor, probably that's a special time. But that cannot be the type of thing that will continue to be there. If there are Victor videos available that can be used with the help of a teacher, teacher's presence, the face-to-face teacher's presence, we cannot undermine, and that is very important. And yeah, and then software app development, we talked about that, especially learning management system. If there are more questions, I can answer later. Broadband connectivity, we talked about that. You see, that is that and the this is with you for it is being recorded, so you can go into these slides later also. Then skill training, I want to spend some time, 3-4 minutes on that. Yes, Dr. Jose did mention that I should talk more about this, but then I have my own limitations. I'm not a technical training person. I mean, but what we have been seeing in institution is, one is simulators. More and more simulators will come up virtually. You see that we all know that pilot training, for example, is a good example that one has to take. No pilot will be allowed to get into a flight and then start learning flying from there. No. First few hours, they will work only on simulators, and simulators are made for that. Air India, for example, has the simulators in Hyderabad. Similarly, other flights also. So simulators will have to be created. Need not be created by every institution. Simulators for various types of job training, skill training. So that's one thing. That's both a hardware issue as well as a software issue. Haptic devices, I've already talked about that. These are devices which can be where the student can interface with the virtual reality through a interactive type of a software. I think that is what would be required for various purposes, various type of trades, or what do you call the vocations or technical areas. It will be different. Artificial intelligence and robotics are probably not something which will happen in the next 3, 4, 5 years, but that surely is coming up. Robotics, we have seen examples of what robots can do. Artificial intelligence in area is still it's a vibrant area where a lot of things are happening, where the human involvement will be much less in those areas. So that's these areas will be maybe for another 5-10 years, that sort of a thing, because that is not only for the higher end type of professionals, it is also the technical staff also would be required when it comes to these things. And stakeholders are government, corporate sector, NGOs, community network, education training institutions, startups, student community. All these will have to be properly mobilized to participating in the change that we are looking for. And opportunities for hardware technicians, software developers and providers. I'm trying to be more specific. It is from what came to my mind. One can discuss later on that. Content creators, graphic designers and animators, higher-end technicians for simulators, haptic devices, trainers for capacity building of teachers and other support staff, and scientists. Of course, lot more research work will happen in this area. I would conclude here and leave it now for question and answer. I think almost like 10 minutes should be available. I'm a little delayed. Sorry about that. And so let me stop here.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel.
Hello, is still coming? Yeah, the question is coming. Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, we have one question.
One question.
Yeah. Can you see, sir?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay,
I will
okay.
answer live.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't touched the agriculture and construction sector really, but agriculture is an area which surely a change will. In Kerala context, let me tell. Imagine the number of people coming back to Kerala. Hmm. And they have been all in Dubai or in other, might go back when things are okay, but we have not tapped our possibilities fully for agriculture. I think this is an area where the government of Kerala also has been talking about it. The Minister for Agriculture has mentioned that, I remember, that there will be people more and more now interested to get into agriculture, but that doesn't mean that just planting something and getting a crop out of that will be enough, but the marketing and all these will have to be looked at. I think there is a possibility of that, there is a potential of that development, because that is more localized. That is one thing. You don't have to travel much. I think people will be less inclined to go out and then work and then come back. And we have seen the immigrant workers doing it. Now, many of them, I don't know, in Kerala, for example, whether how many of them immigrant workers will come back to Kerala. But surely many of them will come back. Kerala has treated them fairly well compared to other states. So I think they will come back. I'm sure. But that area, there is a potential. We have really not used that area. I think government also will have to think of that, whether it is only paddy that they will allow to be grown in our the paddy fields, but also other types of things. And agriculture, if you include the veterinary and other animals part of it, that possibility is also there. I think it's a construction. Of course, construction will have to get back, but I think it will be much lower. I suppose. Because investment on construction might be not happening immediately. Maybe after a year or two, it will pick up further. Yeah.
One question. Sir.
Yeah.
There's a question from. Sir, there's a question from Bashir PA.
Yeah. That's I am into the area of educational empowerment. Setting up an app on mentoring. What would be your advice? How should I take it forward? I mean, yeah. I mean, can you hear what I'm telling? Is it?
Yes.
Okay. See, I cannot go into specific how we'll do it and all, but I'm sure that's an area. Mentoring will be really will be needed. I think there need people who are developing apps, but and helping institutions or others to use it for various applications, which is educational learning applications, will be surely an area that is educational empowerment. I did talk about the capacity building part, and yes, that's what I meant. I think, but what you are meaning, if it is the mentoring for app development, I'm not sure whether that is the one. But helping the stakeholders in develop app use will be an area, and the teachers especially for using it. There is the major obstacle today is the trainers and teachers, and they are not fully equipped to deal with the technology use. Their mindset is better today after COVID, but they are not fully equipped. Yes, that's an area that might work. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question. In your opinion, which sector will have high growth after COVID-19?
Oh, that is a I mean, it will be difficult to say which sector as one sector. What I feel is that every sector, for example, if it will have to come back. But the time taken for each sector to growing and coming back to normal may be more. My belief is that it is the sector which will be the essential needs of the people. Right? For example, retailing is one sector. E-retailing is something which really would pick up. I think more and more people will be into it, and maybe the what would be affected is that it is the face-to-face retailing would be affected. I'm not very sure areas like maybe in Kerala it will happen, whether people will be very sector on jewelry retraining will pick up in a large way. Personally, I may think that it may not, but it will continue to be. But surely retailing is one area. Second is in education, for example. I mean, that's one sector I feel that education, of course, is not a business in that sense. It is both business as well as a public service. So that is another sector which I feel that more and more the food and area will be affected quite a bit, but retailing in that delivery or catering and such areas might. I'm sorry, I'm not able to tell one particular place. Health, yes, health is another sector. I think will come up. It will have to come in many areas. We have also seen that having private hospitals may not be maybe okay, but may not be the way that Kerala, for example, there are a lot of private where health is a business, medical institutions are business. Maybe there will be need to have much more moderate type of hospitals and public sector. I mean, I'm sorry, the infrastructure for public health system. Yes. Oh, my mail ID is there in my. You see, the mail ID is already there in the PowerPoint. I think if that is not enough, I can give the number, but I would prefer it is in the mail. Is that okay?
Sir, I will send.
Yeah. Okay.
So I will send your email ID. No problem.
Okay.
Sir, I have one doubt. What is the future of skill development training area? So a lot of possibilities are in skill area.
Yes.
But my question is skill development training area is there.
Training of, I mean, training people for? I mean, what do you mean is that in the training, the ongoing training or short-term training, or I mean, I didn't get it.
Short-term training like PMKVY, like that.
Oh, okay. I think there will be that's an area of having good potential, because retraining, for example, is one thing which many sectors, many companies will look for. I don't think people will work in the same manner as they used to work earlier. There will be variations. Variations may be very minor in some cases, or in some cases, because the technology used itself will be different, they will have to be retrained in that technology. So each in education, as I was telling, one area which I told very clearly is the training of the education personnel. Similarly, if you look at the corporate sector technicians, all the technicians who are now in the corporate sector, will that training be enough? Some of them probably may, they themselves may train them, but institutions like UEC may like to come out with more short-term training courses. and people will have to see. One thing is very clear: things are going to change very fast, and the human resources will have to be equipped to those fast changes. It has already been happening. You know, people like in my case, in our age group, if you look at my age group, I'm telling that we all used to say that you study, get a degree and get trained, and then that's the end of it. Now you work till the end of your life or career. But that time is over. Maybe every year or every 2 years, probably an employee or a person will have to think of retraining in some way, and that should be available. And who will provide that? Government will not be the one which will provide that regularly. I think it will have to be the private sector, I mean, which will come out with that for a moderate cost. I mean, if it is too expensive, but that the market will decide according to the need of training, the area of training. Is that okay or?
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Anyone? Okay. Okay, it looks like we have covered all our questions, sir.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so
sir.
much for thanking all participants. I was just seeing that how many 154 participants have participated, or rather got registered.
Yeah. Yeah, already more than 160 participated. Some of them just leave.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, that will be there in the. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
On behalf of Universal Engineering College, I would like to express our profound gratitude to our second day webinar series, Dr. Mohan B. Menon. Thank you very much for making the webinar with our participants a really successful one. We greatly appreciate the presentation you gave to us. It was nothing short of incredibly informative and interesting. Thank you, sir. And I also express our sincere gratitude to our principal, Dr. Joski Jacob. I'm happy to express word of thanks to our staff members who have made this seminar a grand success. Once again, thank you everyone. We appreciate you being here. I would like to request you all to fill the feedback form that we have sent in your mail. It will be considered as your attendance sheet. Now, I would like to remind about tomorrow's webinar. We will have Mr. Anas K.A., Head of Design Labs, TZS Cochin, on the topic User Experience Design. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Adira, one reminder, tomorrow program will be at 1:30 p.m.
Okay, tomorrow we will have webinar at 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. See you next time. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, Mohan, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.